looking at turquoise water through a pine forest, and the house it belongs to costs less than a studio apartment in most European capitals. Stone walls, a balcony wide enough to actually use, and 3 sandy bays you can walk to in under 10 minutes. Mallorca. The island everyone assumes is priced out of reach for normal people. And I went through well over 100 listings to find the ones you could actually move into, not projects, not ruins, not great potential, which is code for bring a bulldozer, and a therapist. Most of them are under 170,000 euros, roughly $196,000. One of them has a detail that changes how you think about every single property on this list. And it won't make sense until the end. Property number 1 is in Calais de Mallorca, on the East Coast, priced at 139,000 euros, which is approximately 160,000 US dollars. What you're getting is an apartment on the mezzanine floor of a well-kept residential building, roughly 30 square meters of living space, and a balcony facing greenery, with a view that's quiet and genuinely pleasant. The exterior of the complex is the kind of Mediterranean residential that doesn't try too hard. White walls, shutters, the sort of building that's been maintained, rather than renovated every season for tourists. Inside, the layout is compact, but considered. The living and sleeping area occupies the main space and opens directly onto the balcony. And the balcony, according to the listing, has a view of the greenery, not the car park, which in a coastal town at this price is worth noting. The separate kitchen, and I know kitchens matter in a space this compact, it's genuinely one of the first things I look at, is described as separate, which means you're not cooking from the end of your bed. There's a bathroom with a window and a shower, daylight coming in, which is a small thing that makes a real difference when you're living in 30 square meters. Manual external blinds, SAT system installed, and crucially, the property comes furnished. The honest compromise is this: 30 square meters is 30 square meters. If you need space, this is not the property. If you need storage, there isn't much listed. This is a studio that works for one person, comfortably, or 2 people who genuinely like each other. That's the reality. The kicker, though, is the location. Cala Domingo Gran, Cala Domingo Petit, and Cala Antena, 3 named bays, are within walking distance depending on where in the complex you're situated. Porto Cristo and Porto Colom are 15 to 20 minutes by car. According to the listing, the property is described as move-in ready. At 139,000 euros, furnished East Coast Mallorca. Walking distance to 3 beaches. That's not a bad place to start. Property 2 is also in Calais de Mallorca. Similar price. And yet, it's a different decision. I'll show you why. Here's what you get for 145,000 euros. Approximately 167,000 US dollars. A higher floor, which in Mallorca is almost always worth something. A side sea view, and a backdrop of the Mallorcan hillside that the listing describes as picturesque, which is doing a lot of work. But in this case, the location context supports it. The apartment is roughly 31 square meters, open plan living and sleeping, a galley kitchen with a fridge, hob, and storage, parking on the property, and, according to the listing, a well-kept residential complex. I'm not certain whether that sea view is partial or full. The listing says side sea view, which in my experience means you turn your head slightly to the right and there it is. That's not nothing. That's actually the view you look at from the balcony while eating breakfast. But I wouldn't call it panoramic, and the listing doesn't either, so neither will I. The honest compromise. This is described as an ideal vacation home for couples. If you're planning to live here year-round, remember that Calais de Mallorca is a seasonal town. Most restaurants, hotels, and shops close between November and March. In winter, your nearest full-service town is Manacor, about 20 minutes inland. But here's where the East Coast story gets complicated, because those 6,000 euros between this and Property 1 aren't buying you dramatically more space. What they might be buying you is a higher floor, a sea glimpse, and parking. Whether that trade makes sense depends entirely on how you use the property. Let me stop here for a second. You've just seen two properties, both under 170,000 US dollars, both furnished, both walking distance to 3 sandy Mediterranean bays. That's not a coincidence. That's a pricing window. And pricing windows in resort towns on popular islands don't stay open forever. Keep that in mind as we go. If you're thinking about what daily life actually looks like in this corner of Mallorca, the town of Manacor is about 20 minutes inland by car and has full supermarkets, banks, pharmacies, and services. The hospital de Manacor is roughly 25 minutes away. That's honest. It's not next door, but it's not alarming either. The beaches are 5 to 10 minutes on foot from most of these East Coast listings. Internet in this area is a mixed picture. Fiber availability is patchy in smaller coastal villages, ADSL is common, and Starlink is a realistic and increasingly used fallback for remote workers. And in October, after the summer crowd has gone, it's just you, the pine trees, and a coffee for under €2 at whatever bar is still open. That's a specific kind of life, and it's not for everyone. But for the right person, it's exactly everything. Property 3 changes the format entirely. This one is not on the coast. It's inland, near Algaida, in the Mallorcan countryside. And the asking price is 150,000 euros, approximately 172,000 US dollars. What you're getting is a rustic finca on a plot of approximately 5,000 square meters. Solar panel system. Its own cistern for water storage. Quiet surroundings. Clear views. And it's described as just a few minutes from the center of Algaida, with good connections to Palma. But I need to be upfront about the honest compromise. And here it's significant. The existing building on this property is not currently registered in the property registry. It does not have a certificate of occupancy. The listing states it's a building of consolidated age prior to 1984, which under Mallorcan regulations could allow regularization. But that word could is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Before you fall in love with this one, you need a local architect and a gestor to tell you exactly what the path to legalization looks like, what it costs, and how long it takes. That's not a reason to walk away, it's a reason to ask the right questions before you offer. The kicker, 5,000 square meters of land, solar panels already installed, your own water supply, within reach of Palma, at 150,000 euros. If you can navigate the paperwork, that's a genuinely different kind of asset. Before I get to property 4, there's something worth saying about the non-EU buying process in Mallorca specifically, because the listing status of property 3 raises it directly, and it applies to a few others in this list too. Getting a NIE, the Spanish tax identification number, is a non-negotiable first step for any buyer, regardless of nationality. That's straightforward, and it's a process with a clear path. What's less straightforward is buying a property that lacks a certificate of occupancy. The Spanish legal system does allow for regularization of older buildings in many cases, but the process, the cost, and the timeline vary by municipality. The actionable tip here, engage a local gestor, not just a notary, a gestor who deals specifically with Mallorcan property, before you make any offer on a property flagged with registration issues. The cost of a good gestor is trivial compared to the cost of buying a legal problem. And this is exactly the kind of thing I want you to check before you fall in love with a house. That's why I created The Real Cost of Buying a Cheap House in Europe, a complete 180-page guide to help you understand what you're really paying before you make an offer. If you're serious about buying in Europe, this guide could save you thousands by helping you avoid the wrong property and the hidden costs most buyers miss. You can get it through the link in the description, or just scan the QR code on screen. Don't buy the dream blind. Property 4 is back on the East Coast, Calais de Mallorca, and the asking price is 155,000 euros, approximately 179,000 US dollars. Here's the honest question this listing raises. Compared to property 1 at 139,000 euros, what are you actually getting for the extra 16,000 euros? The spec is nearly identical, approximately 28 to 30 square meters, one room, separate kitchen, bathroom with window and shower, balcony with a greenery view, quiet residential area, East Coast location. The standout addition is a storage room on the same floor. The listing states the property is well kept and describes it as an attractive investment. At 155,000 euros, it's still a real buy for this market. Described as being close to the same three bays: Cala Antina, Cala Domingos Gran, Cala Domingos Petit, in 5 to 10 minutes on foot. But if you're comparing directly against property 1, you should go in knowing that the extra 16,000 euros is primarily buying a storage room and potentially a slightly different position within the complex. Still, there's something that's quietly interesting about this listing, and I'll come back to what that is when we get to the end. Property 5. Same town, same price band. 155,000 euros, approximately 180,000 US dollars. And this one is the one I'd call the most genuinely turnkey entry on the East Coast list. The studio has been renovated, new bathroom, new flooring, modern kitchenette, new air conditioning, and an efficient electric water heater. It comes furnished with a double bed and wardrobes. According to the listing, it's ready to use immediately. The honest compromise: the listing doesn't state the square footage clearly, based on the comparable Calas de Mallorca units. Assume it's in the same 28 to 32 square meter range, which is compact. But the key word here is renovated. In a cluster of properties at this price point, where several are described as well kept rather than updated, a property with a new bathroom, new floors, and working air conditioning is actually in a different category. You're not walking in and making a list of things to sort out. You're walking in and unpacking. For context, a studio apartment in Barcelona's example neighborhood is currently listed at around 250,000 euros. We're at 155,000 euros in a Mediterranean resort town with 3 beach coves within walking distance. I'm not going to oversell it, but I'm also not going to pretend that comparison doesn't tell you something real. Property 6 is the first Palma listing, and I want to be straightforward about it from the start because this one is genuinely interesting and genuinely complicated. The asking price is 160,000 euros, approximately 185,000 US dollars. The property is a 22 square meter open plan studio in the Virgen de Leuc area of Palma, well connected, close to services, with 2 exterior windows, natural light, a fully equipped kitchen, and a bathroom with a window. The listing describes it as move-in ready. Here's the thing nobody puts in the listing description, or rather, they do put it in, but it's easy to skim past. The property is currently registered as a local, meaning a commercial space, not as a residential dwelling. It is being used and set up as a functional studio, but the legal classification on paper is commercial. What that means in practice, for a mortgage, for residency purposes, for future resale, depends on Mallorcan planning regulations and what a local legal advisor tells you about the reclassification pathway. This is not necessarily a deal breaker, but it is a due diligence item that needs to sit at the top of the list, not the bottom. The upside: Palma, full urban infrastructure, bus connections, everything on your doorstep, and a price that, for the city, is genuinely at the low end. The challenge is finding out exactly what you're legally buying. Property 7, Palma, 160,000 euros, approximately 186,000 US dollars. And this is the one that stopped me when I was going through the listings. 61 square meters of usable space, 3 rooms, Palma City, at the same price as a 22 square meter studio 2 listings ago. Let me let that land for a second. The honest compromises: the building is from 1964, 5th floor, no elevator. The listing also mentions this is currently available as a rental with a maximum duration of 11 months, so the situation around immediate owner-occupier purchase needs clarification with the seller. The kitchen is described as fully equipped and modern. The exterior rooms offer natural light. There's air conditioning. If you're looking for a city base in Palma, not a coastal retreat, a city apartment, 61 square meters in a 3-room layout at 160,000 euros is, at the time of this roundup, a number that deserves serious attention. I'll be honest with you though, because this is important. Palma's rental market is under significant pressure. There are active political discussions about short-term rental licenses, and the city's housing landscape is shifting in ways that aren't always visible in listings. Some properties here move fast for reasons that aren't obvious in the photos, and some are complicated for the same reason. I'm not saying don't look at Palma. I'm saying look at Palma carefully with a local lawyer and with your eyes fully open. Property 8, Costa de la Calma, southwest coast, a different part of the island entirely. Asking price, 163,000 euros, approximately 189,000 US dollars. I need to lead with the honest thing here. This studio needs a full renovation. The listing is transparent about it. And notably, some of the photos in the listing show a virtual simulation of what the finished space could look like, not the current state. The current state is in need of complete refurbishment. That's a renovation budget conversation, and the number you need to add to that price depends on your spec and your contractors. But here's what makes it interesting. The Jacaranda residential complex is described as exceptionally quiet and well-maintained. The studio is 28 square meters plus a 6-meter terrace. It's on the 4th floor with elevator access. Monthly community fees of approximately 89 euros include hot and cold water, which is unusual and genuinely cost-effective. There's a concierge service on weekdays. Yearly property tax plus the rubbish fee comes to approximately 210 euros per year, and it's a 1-minute drive or a 7-minute walk from the beach if you have the budget to renovate and want to design the space yourself from scratch. This is the one on this list where you control the outcome. Property 9, and this is where the list changes register completely. 5 minutes from Solar, in the area of Pujol d'Embanya, northwest Mallorca, and the asking price is 165,000 euros, approximately 190,000 US dollars. What you are buying is 9,087 square meters of land, an olive grove covering 2,808 square meters, pine and holm oak woodland covering 6,236 square meters, a small stone cottage of approximately 32 square meters with an outdoor kitchen under an adjoining porch, a gas fridge, a camping stove, a main 12,000-liter rainwater collection tank, plus 4 additional 1,000-liter tanks, a fully fenced plot, views of the Serra de Tramuntana, and I want to quote this directly because it's genuinely specific. The property is situated near the tracks of the historic wooden train that connects Solar with Palma. The honest compromise: this is not a house. The stone cottage is 32 square meters, the water supply is rainwater, and the main access is 2 minutes on foot from where you park your car. There's no mains water connection described, no fiber internet, and no certificate of occupancy mentioned in the listing. This is a land purchase with a charming, rustic structure on it, not a ready-to-live-in home. But for 165,000 euros in the Solar Valley, one of the most desirable areas on the island, 9,000 square meters of olive grove and woodland, with mountain views and a weekend retreat already on site, that's a different kind of Mallorca entirely. Property 10. And here's where I come back to the thing I mentioned at the beginning, the detail buried in this final listing that quietly reframes the whole list. Muro, northern Mallorca, 10 kilometers from the Bay of Alcudia. The asking price is 165,000 euros, approximately 195,000 US dollars. What you're buying: a set of 2 rural plots, totaling 11,000 square meters, tarmac road access, a private well, a 20 square meter basin for water storage, 2 agricultural storage buildings. The main one is approximately 40 square meters with a porch. The smaller is 11 square meters and currently houses the motor pump. Both sheds have been renovated under planning permission, and the owner has committed to installing a solar panel system once the plot is fully enclosed. A planning application for that enclosure is currently pending. No certificate of occupancy, no registered residential building. Similar in that sense to Property 3 and Property 9. And here's the detail. 3 properties in this list: Property 3 in Algaida, Property 9 near Solar, and Property 10 in Muro, are not apartments near beaches. They are land purchases in different corners of Mallorca, each with their own character, each without a fully regularized building, and each priced below 165,000 euros. The detail that changes how you think about this list is this. The sub $200,000 budget in Mallorca doesn't just access small coastal studios. It accesses land, real land, in real places on the island. That's not a niche play. That's a different strategy altogether. So here's where we are. If you're after the coast, the beach walks, the resort town energy, properties 1, 2, 4, and 5 in Calais de Mallorca are the ones to focus on, with property 5 being the most genuinely move-in ready of the group. Property 7 in Palma is the strongest urban value on the list. If you can get clarity on the current tenancy situation and you're willing to accept a 5th floor walk-up in a 1964 building, if you're thinking about land, a different kind of asset, a different kind of life. Property 9 near Solar has the most character and the most striking location. Property 10 in Muro has the largest plot and the most practical existing infrastructure, even if it's agricultural. For remote workers, the coastal apartments are workable with Starlink, but I'd check fiber availability for each specific address before committing. Property 7 in Palma is the strongest internet bet on the list, given it's in the city. The honest verdict? Mallorca at this price is real, but it's small, it's seasonal in many of the coastal spots. And anything flagged as unregistered needs a proper legal review before you get attached to it. The apartments are what they are. Compact, Mediterranean, and genuinely affordable for what and where they are. The land plays are where the surprise is. Here's what I'm curious about, and drop it in the comments, because I genuinely like to know. Are you here for the coast, or are you here for the land? Beach studio or olive grove? Because based on who watches this channel, I suspect it's more divided than you'd think. If this kind of real money, real property breakdown is useful to you, sticking around for the next one makes sense. I go through markets like this properly, not just the highlight reel,